One of the major forms of this loss has been the decline of an interior female subculture in Muslim communities. Islam is an advocate of a modular image of society, that there is a male space and a male domain, a female space and a female domain. It has always been thus. Separate spaces for male and female guests in Muslim houses, the harimlik and the selamlik, most famously. More profoundly, there was traditionally an articulation of sacred spaces which we have lost almost entirely. Western critics may point angrily at the exiguous presence of women in mosques, tucked away at the back, usually not in large numbers, in some parts of the Muslim world because of madhab prescriptions conspicuous by their absence. This applies particularly to the Hanafi way of doing things, and there is an urgent case, I would say, as a non-mujtahid for some new ijtihad there. But what they cannot see is that traditional women in Muslim cultures always had a plurality of approaches to the sacred. And some of those have now atrophied or been lost and even forgotten altogether. And one of the most significant avenues of approach to the sacred was the context of tasawwuf or Sufism. Because whereas in the predominantly male arena of the mosque, the front lines and the position of the imam reserved by the fiqh for the male gender, in the context of tasawwuf, the situation is a good deal more nuanced, potentially or actually, because the manuals of tasawwuf tend to present that reading of Islam that has been most generous to women. Throughout our history we can see this. And whereas it is impossible for a woman to aspire to the position of imamship in a mosque, despite, and perhaps this needs to be noted, the absence of any clear prohibition in the Qur'an and the Hadith. So maybe one day the Salafis will lead the way in reforming this. So Allahu A'lam, we wait to see. The position of the Sheikh of a Tariqah is quite open to women, and historically has on occasion been occupied by women. And in normative Islamic societies, that's a far more influential position than the imamship of a mosque. The imam of a mosque has no sacramental function, no natural pastoral role. He just marks time, recites the Qur'an nicely, and that's it. In many parts of the world, he's not a significant figure at all. He's a kind of functionary. But the pir or the murshid or the sheikh of a tariqah is somebody that everybody wants to be on the right side of, because his or her prayers can be hoped for or feared. They have a healing role. They point people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a far more discursive and pastoral and immediate form than the imam of the mosque is required to do. There is a process of direct transmission and counselling that takes place between the sheikh and the murid that is quite different from what takes place between the imam and the member of the ordinary mosque congregation. But this has, in some parts of the Islamic world, fallen into a state of atrophy, so that the only sacred space in society is the mosque. And that inevitably, whatever the intention might have been, marginalizes female participation in religion.